He was pinned under 2,000 pounds of concrete, and the first thing he did wasn't scream. He called his wife. She didn't pick up. By the time she called him back, it was already too late for the conversation they were supposed to have. And somewhere in a cemetery in Texas, nobody watching from the road had any idea that the man burying their loved ones was fighting for his own life, alone, with no one there to hear him. You think the most dangerous job in America belongs to a cop, or a firefighter, or a lineman working live wires 40 feet in the air. It's not. In 2023 alone, an average of 385 people died every single day in this country from hazardous working conditions. Most of them work jobs nobody thinks twice about. And one of the deadliest of all is the one job that exists specifically to protect you from having to think about death at all. The people who bury the dead. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why the industry built around comforting grieving families is quietly one of the most physically dangerous jobs in the country. And you're going to hear exactly what happened to 3 real people who found that out the hard way. This is Riven Files. Story 1, the call that never connected. Let's start with the man under the concrete. His name was Angel Rojas, 24 years old, a husband, a father to a little boy who was about to turn 4. Angel worked at a funeral home in Dallas, Texas, operating heavy machinery, the kind used to move concrete burial vaults, the sealed containers that go into the ground around a casket to keep the earth from collapsing over time. A single vault can weigh close to 2,500 pounds. That's more than most cars. The job Angel was doing that day was supposed to require 2, sometimes 3 people working together. He was doing it alone. Nobody knows exactly what went wrong in the seconds before it happened. What we know is that one of those concrete vaults, sitting in a storage yard where the funeral home kept them before burial, came loose and fell directly on top of him, pinning him from the waist down. He had one hand free, enough to reach his phone. His first call was for help. His second call was to his wife, Natalie. It went to voicemail. When she finally got through to him, he was still trapped, still conscious, and terrified. He told her he was scared. He told her he wanted to go home. Firefighters arrived and used hydraulic spreaders, the same tools used to cut people out of car wrecks, to lift the vault off of him. By their own estimate, Angel had been trapped for more than 45 minutes before he was freed. He was rushed to the hospital. He didn't survive. Angel and Natalie had been talking about buying a house the week before. He wanted land. He wanted a place for his son to grow up. Investigators with the Occupational Safety and Health Administration opened a case into what happened. The family's attorney didn't mince words about what he believed caused it. A 24-year-old man had been left to operate machinery capable of moving a 2-ton concrete slab completely by himself, with no one there if something went wrong. And here's the part that should unsettle you the most. This wasn't some freak, 1 in a billion accident. This is a known risk in an industry that almost never talks about it publicly. Burial vaults get moved every single day, all across this country, by workers who are given a job most people never think about. And, in far too many cases, not enough people to do it safely. Angel Rojas is not the only name attached to a story like this. Story W, 6 feet down, no way up. If you've ever stood at a graveside during a funeral, you've probably never once thought about how that hole in the ground got there, or what it takes to make sure it doesn't kill the person digging it. On Long Island, New York, a cemetery worker was doing exactly that kind of job, leveling out the bottom of a grave, making sure it was even and ready for the service that was scheduled that day. Graves aren't dug in perfect, stable soil. Cemetery ground shifts. It's often sandy, loose, or soaked from rain, and depending on the depth, the walls of a freshly dug grave can be far less stable than they look from the surface. That morning, without warning, the walls of the grave gave way. The dirt came down around him fast enough that other workers on site didn't have time to react before he was already buried under it. Not metaphorically. Literally. The same hole meant for someone else had closed in around him instead. Co-workers rushed to dig him out by hand, police were called immediately, and because of how sudden and violent the collapse was, investigators initially treated the scene the way they would any unexplained death, as a possible homicide, until it became clear this was a workplace accident, not a crime. He didn't make it. Here's what almost nobody outside the industry knows. Grave collapses like this aren't as rare as they should be. Depending on the soil, some cemeteries can't even use machinery to dig. Workers have to climb down and dig by hand, with only wooden boards holding the walls in place, in a hole that's specifically designed to eventually hold a body of someone else. Every single grave dug by hand carries this same risk. Most of the time, nothing happens. Once in a while, the ground doesn't wait for the funeral to claim someone. Story 3, the danger you can't see. Not every risk in this industry ends in a single, sudden headline. Some of them take years to show up, and by the time they do, it's too late to undo the exposure. At a network of funeral homes and crematoriums overseas, a whistleblower inside the company had been raising alarms since 2019. Her concern wasn't a collapsing grave or a falling slab of concrete. It was something invisible: formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is one of the primary chemicals used in embalming, the process that preserves a body before a funeral. It's effective. It's also classified as a serious health hazard, capable of irritating the skin, eyes, and throat in the short term, and, with prolonged exposure, linked to rare cancers and leukemia. Internal testing at several of the company's locations found formaldehyde levels nearly double the recommended safe limit, and that was during tests where only one body was being embalmed at a time. In busier locations, staff could be embalming up to 3 people simultaneously, which meant the real exposure levels were likely even higher than what was recorded. The whistleblower's warnings weren't hypothetical. She flagged workers not wearing proper protective equipment. She flagged ventilation systems that had never actually been tested to confirm they worked. And she pointed out something that should be obvious but almost never gets said out loud. A mask only protects the person wearing it. Funeral directors walking in and out of that same room with no protective gear at all were being exposed right along with the embalmers. It took a government safety agency issuing a formal notice before the company acknowledged its testing had come back over the legal threshold. No dramatic 911 call, no collapsing earth, just years of quiet exposure in rooms most of us will never enter, to protect us from ever having to see what happens to a body before a funeral. Reflection plus closing the loop. 3 different people, 3 completely different ways this job can kill you. A falling slab of concrete, a grave that collapses in seconds, a chemical you can't even smell doing damage you won't see for years. Remember how this video started. A man pinned under concrete using the last working part of his body to call the person he loved most, and not getting an answer in time. You think the most dangerous job in America is the one with the badge, or the uniform, or the flashing lights. It's not. It's the one where the danger doesn't come with a warning, where there's no adrenaline, no sirens, no one watching. Just a person doing a job nobody else wants to think about, so that the rest of us never have to. Angel Rojas wanted a house with land for his son. The worker in that Long Island cemetery was leveling a grave for a stranger's funeral. The embalmers overseas were just doing what they were trained to do, in a room with air that was quietly working against them. None of them thought that day was going to be the one where something went wrong. That's the part that should stay with you. If this is the first time you've heard any of these 3 stories, you're not alone. And that's exactly the problem. These aren't secrets. They're just stories nobody tells, about the people who make sure the rest of us never have to face what they face every single day. This has been Riven Files. If you want to see what other jobs are hiding stories like these, you already know what to do.